The metal door slammed so hard the whole hallway shook. Claire Harper didn't flinch. Not because she was brave. Because her body had already run out of fear. A guard's keys clinked like cold little laughs as he shoved her forward. The air smelled like bleach and old sweat. Fluorescent lights buzzed above her head like angry insects. Behind her, someone shouted a curse. Somewhere farther down, a woman cried like she'd been crying for days. Claire's wrists were raw from the cuffs. Her ankles ached from walking too fast in cheap prison shoes. She tasted blood where she'd bitten the inside of her cheek to stop herself from speaking. Because if she spoke, she would scream. And she couldn't afford to scream. Not today. Steel door opened. And there he was, Ethan, her ex-husband, standing beyond the thick glass of the visitation room like he belonged there. Like he was the one who had been wronged. He wore a clean navy suit, a pale tie, and that familiar gentle smile he used on waiters, neighbors and strangers. The smile that told the world, see, I'm a good man. Claire's stomach tightened so fast it felt like a fist. Ethan lifted a hand and tapped the glass lightly, like he was knocking on an aquarium. Claire, he mouthed. She stepped closer. The guard behind her said, 2 minutes. 2 minutes. That was all the world thought she deserved. Ethan leaned in, his eyes shining with fake sadness. You didn't have to make this hard, he said through the phone, calm as a bedtime story. If you had just signed the papers, admitted it, they would have gone easier on you. Claire stared at him so hard her vision trembled. Admitted it. The crime she didn't commit. The money she didn't steal. The life he burned down with one phone call and a few forged signatures. Ethan sighed, shaking his head like a disappointed teacher. You always did love drama. Claire's nails dug into the phone. Her hands were shaking now, but she forced her voice to stay low. You sent me here. Ethan's smile widened just a little. Not enough for the cameras. Just enough for her. I didn't send you anywhere, he said softly. You did. Your choices did. Claire's throat went tight. In her mind she saw the courtroom again. The judge's heavy face. The prosecutor's sharp voice. The photos of bank transfers on a screen. The forged emails. The witness list filled with people Ethan coached. Then she heard the sentence again. 5 years. The guard said, time. Ethan's eyes flicked to the guard, then back to her. He lowered his voice like a secret. Enjoy your stay, he whispered. And don't worry. I'll take good care of what you left behind. Claire's chest burned. She wanted to throw the phone. She wanted to slam her head into the glass until it cracked. Instead she just said one sentence. Quiet. Flat. You have no idea who you just put in a cage. Ethan blinked like he didn't understand. Then he chuckled. Short, amused sound. Oh, Claire, he said. You're still pretending you're special. He hung up and walked away. Claire watched him go, her breath turning sharp in her lungs. The guard grabbed her arm. Move. He turned. Shackles clinked. A door opened. Cold air hit her face. And as she was dragged back into the belly of the prison, Claire kept her eyes forward. Because she couldn't let anyone see what was happening inside her. Something was waking up. Something patient. Something dangerous. And somewhere in the outside world, Ethan Harper was walking around thinking he had won. But he had no idea that the woman he sent to prison wasn't broken. She was building. And when she came out, she wouldn't just take her life back. She would take everything from him. Not with rage. Not with screaming. With precision. The kind that leaves a person standing in the ruins, holding dust, still asking, how did this happen? Because the real twist wasn't that Claire would survive prison. It was that the day she walked out, the man waiting outside wouldn't be her lawyer. It wouldn't be her family. It would be the new CEO of the company Ethan had been bragging about for months. A man Ethan had been begging for a partnership. A man who would smile, shake Ethan's hand, and then hand him a folder that would end his entire life. And the worst part, Ethan had already signed the first page. He just didn't know it yet. Claire Harper didn't always live in places that smelled like bleach. There was a time her world smelled like clean rain and expensive coffee. A time her sheets were soft. Her windows were tall. Her life was quiet in a way most people never touch. But she wasn't born into happiness. She was born into power. Her father, Richard Kane, was the kind of billionaire people wrote magazine covers about. Private jets, silent security teams, buildings with his name carved into stone. A man who could call a mayor and make streets close. But inside their mansion, he was not gentle. He believed in control, in image, in legacy. When Claire was 16, he sat her down at a dining table big enough for 12 and said, "One day, this will all be yours." Which means one day, you will stop being a person and start being a symbol. Claire stared at him, her hands clenched under the table. "I don't want that." Richard Kane didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You don't get to want," he said. "You get to obey." Claire grew up like that. Private schools, private tutors, private expectations. And at 21, she made the first real choice of her life. Ran. Not with suitcases. Not with drama. Just one backpack. Cheap phone. New name. She left the world of money because she wanted to know if anyone could love her without it. She moved to a different city where no one knew Kane Industries. She got a normal job. She rented a small apartment with thin walls and loud neighbors. And it felt like freedom. For the first time she could breathe. Then she met Ethan Harper. He worked in a mid-level finance office downtown. Not rich. Not poor. Just hungry. Hungry in a way Claire recognized. He had that bright, ambitious energy. The kind that made people lean in when he talked. The kind that promised the future like it was already in his pocket. He spilled coffee on her in a cafe once. Apologized so hard the whole room looked. Then he bought her a muffin to make up for it. Claire laughed. It was such a small thing. And Ethan made it feel like fate. Their relationship moved fast. Too fast. Ethan loved asking questions about her past. Claire never lied about who she was inside. She lied about her name. She said she grew up comfortable. She said her family was complicated. She said she didn't talk to them much. Ethan would nod like he understood. Like he was safe. And for a while he was. He held her when she had nightmares. He kissed her forehead and told her, "I've got you." He told her, "I don't care where you come from. I care where we're going." The day he proposed, he did it in a park, under trees, with a simple ring. Claire's throat tightened. It wasn't the ring. It was the way he looked at her. Like she was the answer. So she said yes. And she meant it. They got married in a small ceremony. Claire's family wasn't there. Ethan's family cried and hugged her like she was already theirs. She told herself this was real. This was her life. But love, Claire learned, can be real. And still not be safe. 2 years in, Ethan started changing. Not suddenly. Slowly. He began making jokes about her job. "You're too smart to be doing this," he'd say. "You should aim higher. My wife shouldn't be average." He began pushing. "Why don't you invest? Why don't you start a business? Why don't you let me manage your money?" Claire would shrug. "I'm fine." Ethan would smile. But his eyes didn't. Then came the night she caught him looking through her laptop. Not her email. Not her photos. Her bank account. Claire stood in the doorway, heart pounding. Ethan looked up too fast. Like a kid caught stealing. "I was just," he started. "Why?" she asked. Ethan swallowed. Then he tried to laugh it off. "Babe, relax. I was checking our finances. We're married." Claire stepped closer. "That's my personal account. Why are you in it?" Ethan's face tightened. "Why are you hiding it?" "I'm not hiding it," she said. "I'm protecting it." Ethan's voice went cold. "From me." That night was the first crack. And cracks spread. Claire began noticing other things. Ethan taking calls in another room. Ethan keeping his phone face down. Ethan getting angry when she asked simple questions. Then one afternoon, A woman named Madison showed up at Ethan's office party. Long hair, perfect makeup, laughed too loud. A hand that touched Ethan's arm like it belonged there. Ethan introduced her like nothing. "Claire, this is Madison. She's on the new client team." Madison smiled at Claire the way women smile when they think they've already won. "Nice to finally meet you," Madison said, dragging the words out. Claire's stomach turned. That night Claire asked Ethan, "Are you sleeping with her?" Ethan looked offended, angry, like she had insulted him. "What is wrong with you?" he snapped. "You're paranoid." Claire stared at him. "So you're not?" Ethan rolled his eyes. "No." But his hands were shaking slightly when he said it. That was when Claire did something she had never done before. She investigated. Not because she wanted to control him. Because her gut was screaming. She checked the phone records. She found late-night calls. Dozens. She checked their shared calendar. She saw work dinners that weren't work. She checked receipts. Hotel charges. Claire's chest felt like it was full of stones. She waited. She watched. And one night she followed him. Rain fell on her windshield, blurring the city into streaks of light. Her hands were sweating on the steering wheel. Her breath came out in short bursts. Ethan's car pulled into a hotel parking garage. Claire parked across the street, heart pounding. And then she saw Madison step out of a rideshare and walk inside. Claire's body went cold. She sat there for 10 minutes, staring at the hotel entrance like it might swallow her whole. Then she walked in. The lobby smelled like perfume and polished marble. People moved around laughing, living normal lives, while Claire felt like she was drowning. She went to the front desk. "My husband checked in. Ethan Harper." The receptionist looked uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I can't." Claire didn't argue. She didn't need to. She just waited near the elevators. And when she saw Ethan and Madison step out, holding hands, smiling, Claire's vision narrowed to a sharp point. Ethan saw her. His face turned white. Madison's smile fell. For a moment everything stopped. Then Ethan did something that would define the rest of Claire's life. He didn't apologize. He didn't cry. He walked right up to her and said through clenched teeth, "What are you doing here?" Claire's voice shook. "I'm your wife." Ethan's eyes flashed with panic and rage. He glanced around, then leaned in close. "Not for long," he hissed. "Go home." Madison stood behind him, arms crossed like this was entertaining. Claire felt humiliation burn through her. She turned and walked out. Not because she was weak. 'Cause she knew something. Ethan wasn't just cheating. He was planning. The divorce was brutal. Ethan wanted everything. The apartment. The savings. Car. Even the furniture Claire bought before he existed in her life. Claire hired a lawyer. Ethan hired a better one. And then Ethan did what hungry people do when they smell blood. He began telling everyone Claire was unstable. He told friends she was hiding money. He told co-workers she had a shady past. He told the court she was financially reckless. Claire sat in mediation rooms listening to lies spoken with a calm voice. And every time she tried to defend herself, Ethan would lean back and say, "See? This is what I mean. She gets emotional." Then came the day everything exploded. Claire was at work when 2 investigators walked in. They asked her name. They asked her to stand. They asked her to come with them. People stared. Phones came out. Claire's boss looked terrified. Claire's heart pounded. "What is this?" One investigator said, "You're under investigation for embezzlement and fraud." Claire blinked hard. "What?" They showed her documents. Bank transfers. Electronic approvals. Her name on everything. Amounts so large her brain couldn't process them. Claire whispered, "This isn't mine." They didn't care. The next 48 hours were a nightmare. Her accounts were frozen. Her name hit the news in small articles. Local woman accused of stealing from employer. Ethan filed for an emergency order in the divorce proceedings, claiming Claire was a criminal. And when Claire begged him to tell the truth, Ethan sat across from her in a lawyer's office and said the words that still echoed in her skull. "You should have trusted me with your money." Claire stared, confused through tears. "What are you talking about?" Ethan's eyes were flat. "If you'd let me in, I wouldn't have had to take it." Claire's breath caught. "You did this." Ethan shrugged slightly. "Prove it." She tried. She hired forensic accountants. She begged her employer to investigate deeper. She asked the police to trace IP addresses. She told them her ex-husband had motive. But Ethan was careful. He didn't use his own devices. He didn't use his own login. He used hers. 'Cause he had access. Because he was her husband. And in court the evidence looked simple. Claire's name. Claire's approval. Claire's login. Claire's signature. The judge didn't see Claire. The judge saw a woman who looked nervous and defensive. The judge saw a man in a suit crying as he said, "I loved her. I tried to save her. And she destroyed us." Ethan even brought Madison as a character witness. Madison wore a soft sweater and looked sad, like she didn't want to be there. Madison said, "Ethan tried so hard." Claire was unpredictable. Claire stared at her like she was watching a play. A disgusting, perfectly rehearsed play. The sentence came down like a hammer. Guilty. 5 years. Claire's knees nearly gave out. She looked at Ethan. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. His eyes said, "I own you." And then the prison doors swallowed her. Prison wasn't one horror moment. It was thousands of small ones. It was the way guards looked through you. It was the way people tested you, sniffing weakness like wolves. It was sleeping with one eye open. It was cold food. Loud nights. Hot days. It was learning to hide tears because tears were currency and predators were always shopping. Claire learned to fold herself into silence. But inside that silence something else grew. In the prison library, Claire met a woman named Teresa. Teresa was older, calm, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Teresa watched Claire for days before speaking. It was about business leadership. Claire blinked. "Why are you giving me this?" Teresa leaned back. "Because you don't belong here." Claire let out a bitter laugh. "The judge disagrees." Teresa's gaze didn't move. "I've seen criminals. You're not one." Claire swallowed hard. Teresa lowered her voice. "Who were you before this place?" Claire stared at the book. Her fingers trembled on the cover. For years, she had hidden the truth like it was poison. But in prison, truth didn't poison you. Saved you. So Claire said quietly, "My real last name is Kane." Teresa's eyebrows lifted slightly. "Kane as in?" Claire nodded once. "Kane Industries." Teresa didn't gasp. She didn't freak out. She just exhaled like that explained everything. "Why would you hide that?" Teresa asked. Claire's jaw tightened. "Because I wanted to be loved for me." Teresa's voice was soft but sharp. "And were you?" Claire didn't answer. Because the answer would crush her. Teresa leaned in. "Listen to me. Power doesn't make you evil. Makes you visible. And if you don't use it, someone else will use it against you." Claire stared at the book, then whispered, "He ruined me." Teresa nodded slowly. "Then build yourself back in a way he can't touch." That night, Claire lay on her thin mattress, staring at the ceiling while the prison hummed around her. And she made a decision. She would not die in here. Not physically. Not emotionally. Not spiritually. She would survive. And when she got out, she would stop hiding. Not to show off. Not to brag. But to make sure no one ever put her in a cage again. Claire began writing letters. Not to Ethan. Not to the court. To her father, Richard Kane. She hadn't spoken to him in years. Her hand shook as she wrote. Not begging. Not apologizing. Just facts. "I am in prison. I was framed. Ethan Harper did it. I need help, not pity. I need you to listen, not control." Weeks passed. No response. Then one day her name was called. "Harper. Visitation." Claire's stomach twisted. She walked into the visitation area expecting Ethan's smug face again. But the man sitting behind the glass was not Ethan. He was older, suit perfectly tailored, hair gray at the temples, as cold as winter. Richard Kane. Claire's breath caught. She sat down, phone shaking in her hand. Richard stared at her like he was reading a report. "You look thin," he said. Claire's voice was hoarse. "Prison does that." Richard's jaw flexed. "Why didn't you call sooner?" Claire laughed without humor. "You mean, why didn't I come crawling back the moment life got hard?" Richard didn't react. "Yes." Claire leaned forward. "Because I didn't want your help if it came with chains." Richard's eyes narrowed. "And yet here you are. In chains." Claire's throat burned. Richard said, "Tell me everything." So she did. She told him about Ethan, about the affair, about the forged documents, about the trial. Richard listened without interrupting. When Claire finished, silence filled the space. Then Richard said something Claire didn't expect. "I warned you," he said quietly. Claire's eyes flashed. "Of course. This is the part where you tell me I deserve it." Richard's gaze hardened. "No. This is the part where I tell you I should have protected you better." Claire blinked. Her heart stuttered. Richard continued, voice low. "I built an empire. And I let my daughter walk into a trap because she wanted a fairy tale." Claire swallowed. Tears threatened. Richard leaned closer. "Do you want revenge?" Claire's mouth opened then closed. 'Cause revenge sounded dirty. But justice sounded too small. Richard's voice was like steel. "Do you want him to pay?" Claire's hands clenched. She thought of Ethan's smile through the glass. She thought of Madison's smug eyes. She thought of the judge's gavel. She whispered, "Yes." Richard nodded once. "Then we do this correctly." Over the next year, things began shifting in ways Claire couldn't fully see yet. Her case was quietly reviewed. A new legal team appeared. Better investigators. Better analysts. Teresa would watch Claire come back from meetings with that look in her eyes. Focused, quiet, dangerous. "What's happening?" Teresa asked one day. Claire's voice was calm. "The truth is being dug up." Teresa smiled slightly. "Good." And then came the day Claire was called to the warden's office. The warden, a thick-necked man with tired eyes, looked at her paperwork and said, "Your conviction is being appealed." "New evidence." Claire's heartbeat thundered. "What evidence?" The warden slid a document across the desk. Digital trace. Hidden access log. A device linked to the fraud. Not Claire's. Someone else's. The warden frowned. "Looks like your ex-husband got sloppy." Claire stared at the paper, throat tight. For the first time in years, she felt air. Real air. Not prison air. Oh. 3 months later, Claire walked out of prison. The sun hit her face like something she had forgotten existed. A cold wind moved through her hair. Her hands were free. Her lungs filled. And outside the gate, cameras waited. Reporters shouted questions. People held phones. And standing beside a black SUV was a man in a suit with sharp eyes and a calm smile. Jordan Miles. Publicly, he was known as the new CEO of Kane Industries. Privately, he was Claire's right hand, her shield, the one person her father trusted to keep her safe. Jordan opened the car door. Claire paused, looking back at the prison. Then she looked forward. Jordan said softly, "Welcome back, Ms. Kane." Claire stepped into the SUV. And as the door shut, the outside noise disappeared. Jordan handed her a folder. Inside were photos, bank records, emails, voice transcripts, a timeline of everything Ethan had done. Claire's jaw tightened. "How much does he know?" Jordan's voice was steady. "He thinks you're still broke. Still broken. Still ashamed." Claire stared out the tinted window as the prison disappeared behind them. "Good," she whispered. "Let him keep thinking that." In the months that followed, Ethan Harper's life looked perfect on the outside. He told people his ex-wife was a criminal. He told people he survived. He told people he was building something bigger now. He even got promoted. He and Madison moved into a nicer house. Ethan started posting online about new beginnings. He smiled in photos like the world owed him applause. But behind that smile, Ethan was nervous, because something strange was happening. A major deal he expected fell through. A new investor stopped answering. A bank started asking questions. Small things at first, like a shadow creeping across a wall. Then, one morning, Ethan walked into his office and saw two men in suits waiting by his desk. One held a badge. "Mr. Harper," the man said, "we need to ask you some questions about financial activity connected to the Claire Harper case." Ethan's face went tight. "That case is done." The man's eyes didn't blink. "Not anymore." Ethan laughed, forced. "This is ridiculous." The man placed a folder on the desk. "Is it?" Ethan opened it, and his stomach dropped. Logs, devices, access points, evidence, real evidence. Ethan's hands trembled just slightly. "Where did you get this?" Ethan snapped. The investigator's voice was calm. "From people who don't like liars." Ethan's mind raced. Well, he didn't know about Kane. Claire never told him. Ethan swallowed. "This is a mistake." The investigator leaned in. "Mr. Harper, we know you framed your ex-wife." Ethan's lips parted. For a second his mask slipped. Then it snapped back on. He stood up. "Get out. I want a lawyer." And that was when the real game began. Because Claire wasn't coming for him with screams. She was coming for him with systems. With contracts. With boards. With law. With the kind of revenge that doesn't end in one dramatic moment, but in a slow collapse where everyone watches and no one helps. Claire's first move was quiet. She didn't call Ethan. She didn't post online. She didn't do interviews. She simply walked into a private boardroom at Kane Industries and sat at the head of the table. Her father sat to her right. Jordan sat to her left. Men and women in expensive suits stared at her like they were seeing a ghost. Richard Kane cleared his throat. "This is my daughter, Claire Kane. Majority shareholder. Effective immediately, she will be taking over as CEO." Some people looked shocked. Some looked relieved. Jordan watched Claire's face. Claire didn't smile. She said, "I'm not here to be admired. I'm here to rebuild what I walked away from. And to correct what was done to me." A woman at the table asked softly, "Will you be making a public statement?" Claire's eyes were steady. "Not yet." Because Claire didn't want attention. She wanted timing. And Ethan. Ethan loved attention. Which made him easy. Claire learned something in prison. People like Ethan don't fear anger. They fear exposure. They fear being seen clearly. Because their whole life is a costume. So Claire decided she wouldn't just punish Ethan. She would undress him in front of the world. Slowly, piece by piece. Until even Madison couldn't pretend she didn't see it. Step 2 was business. Ethan had recently started a small consulting firm on the side, using his corporate contacts. He bragged about it. He talked about it like it was his future empire. Claire didn't shut it down. She bought it, quietly, through a holding company. Ethan didn't know. He signed papers. Accepted a partnership investment. Celebrated with Madison. He told her, "This is it. This is our big break." Madison kissed him. "I knew you'd win." Ethan didn't notice the fine print. He didn't notice that the investor's name was hidden behind layers. He didn't notice that his new partner had the right to audit every account at any time. And when the audit began, everything Ethan had ever touched started glowing. Because when you're willing to frame a woman, you're usually willing to steal in smaller ways too. Within weeks, Ethan received letters, compliance checks, tax inquiries, contract cancellations. He started getting calls from clients saying, "We're going another direction." Ethan's face grew tight in every photo. His smile became thinner. Madison started snapping at him. What is happening? Ethan kept saying. It's nothing. It's just business. But late at night when Madison slept, Ethan stared at his ceiling with fear crawling under his skin. Then came the invitation. A formal corporate gala. Kane Industries was hosting a charity night. Major investors, big names, cameras, and Ethan's firm, his pride, was invited as a potential partner. Ethan's eyes lit up when he saw the email. This is it, he told Madison, excitement rising. This is how we get back in. This is how we win. Madison smiled, but her eyes were sharp. Why would they invite you? Ethan shrugged. Because I'm good. Because they need me. He bought a new suit. Better one. Madison bought a dress that glittered like a weapon. They walked into the ballroom like royalty. Crystal lights sparkled above. Soft music played. People laughed with wine in their hands. Ethan breathed it in like oxygen. He shook hands. He networked. He smiled so hard his cheeks hurt. And then the room shifted. Not loudly, just subtly. Whispers started moving like wind through grass. Heads turned. A line of security straightened. Ethan frowned. What's going on? Madison looked toward the entrance. And her face tightened. Claire walked in. Not the prison version. Not the tired, pale woman Ethan remembered behind glass. This Claire was different. Hair glossy. Makeup minimal but perfect. A black dress that fit her like she was made of steel wrapped in silk. She didn't look rich. She looked dangerous. Jordan walked beside her. Richard Kane behind them. The room reacted like the tide. People moved toward her. Ethan froze. His brain tried to place her. Tried to label her. And then it hit him like a punch. That face. Those eyes. Claire. Well, it couldn't be. Ethan's throat went dry. Madison whispered. Who is that? Ethan didn't answer. Because Claire was smiling now. Not a happy smile. Controlled one. She walked through the crowd and people made space for her like she was gravity. Ethan watched her approach. Every step she took made his heart pound harder. When she reached him she stopped. Ethan's mouth opened but no words came out. Claire looked him up and down slowly. Like she was inspecting something she might throw away. Then she held out her hand. Ethan Harper, she said smoothly. I've heard so much about you. Ethan's fingers twitched. He stared at her hand like it was a trap. Then because the room was watching he shook it. Her grip was firm. Steady. Claire's eyes locked onto his. And in a voice only he could hear she said, You sent me to prison. And still didn't bother to learn who I was. Ethan's face went pale. Madison looked between them. Wait, you know her. Claire turned her head slightly. Just enough to glance at Madison. Her smile didn't move. I used to, Claire said. Ethan's voice finally returned, thin and shaky. Claire, what is this? Claire tilted her head like she was curious. This is my life, Ethan. The one you tried to steal. Ethan swallowed hard. You're out. Claire nodded once. Yes. Ethan's hands started sweating. Madison snapped. Ethan, who is she? Ethan forced a laugh. She's my ex-wife. Madison's eyes widened. Your ex-wife is here. Claire's gaze returned to Ethan. He told you I was a criminal, didn't he? Madison's lips parted. Claire continued calmly. He told everyone I stole money. That I was unstable. Ethan's jaw clenched. Claire, don't do this here. Claire's smile sharpened. Oh, I'm not doing anything. I'm just attending my own event. Ethan blinked. You're what? Claire turned slightly as Jordan stepped forward. Jordan's voice carried, confident and clear. Ms. Kane, the board members are ready when you are. The room went silent in a way that made Ethan's ears ring. Ms. Kane. Ethan's eyes darted to Richard Kane standing behind her. And suddenly the pieces connected. The last name Claire had never told him. The complicated family. The quiet money she never explained. Ethan's legs felt weak. Madison whispered. Kane, as in Kane Industries? Claire looked at Madison again, almost gently. Yes, Claire said. That Kane. Madison's face drained of color. Ethan tried to speak, but his mouth was dry. Claire leaned close to him, her voice low like a lullaby. You wanted to take care of what I left behind, she whispered. So I'm here to return the favor. Ethan's eyes flashed with panic. Claire, please. Claire straightened, expression calm. Then she raised her voice just enough for the people closest to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, thank you for coming tonight. I'm Claire Kane, CEO. Claire continued, calm and smooth. Tonight is about giving back. But it's also about truth. And I'm done letting lies sit comfortably in expensive rooms. Ethan's stomach dropped. Claire nodded to Jordan. Jordan handed her a folder. Claire held it lightly like it weighed nothing. Then she looked directly at Ethan. This man, she said, her voice still simple, still steady, helped put an innocent woman in prison. Gasps rippled. Ethan's face twisted. No. Claire lifted one finger slightly. Not dramatic, just enough. And that innocent woman, she said, was me. The crowd murmured. Phones began rising. Ethan shook his head, voice cracking. Claire, stop. You're ruining my life. Claire's eyes didn't blink. You ruined mine first, she said. I'm just returning it to the truth. At that moment, 2 security officers stepped in. Not prison guards. Private security. Professional. One spoke quietly to Ethan. Sir, you need to come with us. Ethan jerked back. I'm not going anywhere. Claire spoke again, cutting through his panic. Ethan Harper, she said. You signed partnership documents with a Kane Industries holding company 3 weeks ago. You gave us audit rights. You gave us access. You gave us permission. Ethan's face went blank. Claire continued. And during that audit, we found enough evidence of fraud, theft, and falsified reports to open a criminal case. Ethan's eyes widened. Madison whispered. Ethan, what did you do? Ethan snapped at her. Shut up. That one sentence, sharp, ugly, made the crowd shift. Because masks fall fastest under pressure. Claire's voice remained calm. You forged my name. You moved money. You lied to law enforcement. You lied to the court. Ethan's voice rose, desperate. You can't prove it. Claire turned slightly and nodded. A man stepped forward from the crowd. Detective. Detective Reyes. He held up a badge and said, Actually, we can. Ethan's breath hitched. Detective Reyes continued. We have digital evidence. We have financial trails. We have witness testimony. And we have a recorded confession. Ethan's head snapped up. What confession? Claire looked at him with something almost like pity. Do you remember the day you told me, she said softly, that if I had trusted you with my money, you wouldn't have had to take it? Ethan's face went still. Claire's fingers brushed the ring on her hand. Simple, plain. Then she held it up. It wasn't just a ring, she said. It was a recorder. A wave of shock moved through the crowd. Ethan's mouth opened. No sound came out. Madison's hand flew to her mouth. Detective Reyes nodded. We have it. Clear as day. Ethan's eyes darted around, wild. Then he did what cowards do when the ground falls away. He lunged. Not at the detective. Claire. His hand shot out like he was going to grab her wrist. Pull her close, make her quiet. Security moved faster. They slammed him back, pinning his arms. Ethan shouted, voice cracking. You set me up. Claire didn't move. She didn't flinch. She just watched him. And in that moment, Ethan looked exactly like what he was. Not powerful. Not smart. Just scared. A man whose whole life depended on being believed. Detective Reyes stepped in. Ethan Harper, you are under arrest. The room filled with sound. Gasps, murmurs, camera shutters, quick whispers. Ethan shouted, Claire, please, don't do this. Claire leaned closer. And for the first time, her voice carried a hint of heat. I didn't do this, she whispered. You did. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences. Madison stood frozen, tears in her eyes. Ethan, tell me you didn't. Ethan screamed. I did it for us. Madison's face shattered. Claire's eyes stayed on Ethan. And that, Claire said quietly, is what monsters always say. Security dragged Ethan away, his shoes scraping the floor, his voice rising into ugly sobs and curses. As he disappeared through the doorway, the ballroom didn't feel glamorous anymore. Felt like a courtroom. And the truth was the judge. Claire stood still, breathing evenly, while people stared at her like she was a storm that had learned how to speak. Jordan leaned in. Are you okay? Claire blinked slowly. She wasn't okay. Not in the way people mean when they ask. But she was free. She turned back to the crowd. Her voice was steady again. Tonight, she said, we raise money for people rebuilding their lives after unfair systems crush them. Because I know what it feels like to be trapped by someone else's lie. The room was silent. Claire continued. Some people think karma is magic. Like lightning that strikes when you wish hard enough. A pause. Her eyes swept across faces. Rich faces, powerful faces, human faces. But karma, Claire said, is often simpler. It's the truth, finally catching up. And it always does. Months later, Ethan's life collapsed in public. His firm imploded. His accounts were frozen. Madison left him. His friends avoided him. His name became a warning. And when the court cleared Claire's conviction, when headlines shifted from criminal to wrongfully convicted, people suddenly wanted to praise her strength. They wanted to call her inspiring. Claire didn't crave their applause. Because the truth was, the strongest thing she did wasn't surviving prison. It was refusing to become Ethan. She didn't destroy him with lies. She destroyed him with facts, with patience, with timing, with the truth he thought he buried. And when Claire sat alone one night in her office, lights of the city glittering outside her window, Teresa's words came back to her. Power doesn't make you evil. It makes you visible. Claire finally understood. Love without wisdom can make you blind. Trust without boundaries can make you easy to break. And revenge without truth can make you the villain. But when you choose truth, even if it takes years, even if it costs you everything, truth has a way of returning what was stolen. Not always gently, but always completely. Claire stood by her window and whispered to the reflection in the glass. He thought he put me in a cage. She smiled, small and real. But all he did was teach me how to build a key. And if you're watching this right now, maybe you felt it too. That deep injustice. That moment where someone wronged you, smiled, and walked away like they got away with it. I won't lie to you. Not every story ends with a ballroom and handcuffs. Not every villain pays the way we want. But I believe this with my whole heart. The truth is heavy. And the people who carry lies always get tired. Sooner or later they drop them. And when they drop them, everything breaks. So if you believe in karma, real karma, the kind built by truth and time, subscribe to this channel. Because the next story might remind you of something you've been trying to forget. Or something you've been waiting to see. And either way, justice has a way of showing up.